So, first, Gary, let me just tell you an assumption that I always make whenever I do philosophy. That's that all of our ideas and our thoughts are embodied. Um, what we know about the world is a function of our body's sensation and feeling of being in a world. So, when I try to understand the truth about reality, of course, it's always going to be somehow related to a certain emotion, a certain aesthetic appreciation for the beauty of the truth of whatever idea. Um, that they just seem to always correspond. I've never known a truth that wasn't also beautiful. Um, Suffering, because I see that it is always in relation to this, you know, profound bliss or ultimate satisfaction, I think suffering is beautiful because I see it always in contrast to bliss, to satisfaction. My life isn't total suffering. I know we live on a planet right now where a lot of people, their life is total suffering. But I recognize that there is the possibility that it does not have to be so. Um, because I recognize in my own life, but also in the rest of nature, that sometimes beautiful things happen. And in fact, there's been, such an astonishing recurrence of beautiful events in the history of our universe that I tend to suspect it will continue to unfold in that fashion, in a beautiful way. I have faith in it, I'll admit it. It's not faith in any particular outcome. It's just a very intense appreciation for the current state of the universe in light of the past, which we now know scientifically, empirically. Um, so I have it's a religion of nature. I see meaning in the natural world itself. Um, and I think that is part of the ultimate aim of any worthwhile philosophy is to provide us with meaning. If a philosophy can't provide you with meaning, it's completely worthless. By definition, it's meaningless, it's worthless, it has no relevance to any person. Um, so, your example of a bunch of robots with an infinite storage of spare parts fighting against one another with the simple aim of just reproducing themselves, building another copy of themselves, um, and killing whatever other robots they come into contact with. Probably you didn't add this, but you probably would want to add that the robot, which constructs a copy of itself, will not then kill the copy of itself, will it? Or maybe it will. Maybe it just depends how many generations down the line it is, and until it's willing, to actually start killing its own offspring. 4 generations, 5 generations, maybe at some point then it just becomes okay. I don't know, but the point is, with the robots, because there's no potential for any creativity there, they're eventually going, um, to kill each other. And they might continue killing each other, but there'll never be any evolution. There'll never be any real change. There'll never be the emergence of new forms. It'll just be these robots killing each other. And I suspect that it would eventually, due to, the second law of thermodynamics, just the whole thing would run down. The robots would, kill most of them, each other off, and then there'd be a few left, and they'd be so far apart that, they'd have no parts left, and they'd just fall apart and die. So, real life, actual organisms seem to have the potential to be creative. Uh, we have evidence, fossil evidence of this. We have evidence of the presence of this right now. Um, the planet Earth, at least 5 or 10 years ago, had the most diversity of species at any other point in its 4.5 billion year history. Um, we're quickly driving a lot of those into extinction, but the Earth is full of a complex array of intelligent organisms which have managed to survive for billions of years. The planet itself is an organism. Because, little technicality, the essence of life is not reproduction. The essence of life is self-production. You need the first living cell before you can have the first living cell that reproduces, right? So, if we're going to understand life, what we really want to understand is how self-production works. How does this living form continually create itself out of dead matter, out of molecules? If we adhere to standard reductionistic materialism, where there's just a bunch of inert atoms banging into each other in a deterministic fashion, there doesn't seem to be any way to account for the emergence of any feeling, of any insight, of any experience. We can say it appeared at some point when the brain got complicated enough, but okay, you're using these fancy words now, brain and complicated, but you're still, admittedly, right, talking about atoms. So somehow atoms rearrange themselves, right? Somehow rearrange, did you even say that? You're attributing some kind of will to them. Rearrange themselves into this pattern that becomes conscious because of its shape. But then the added complication here, of course, is that we haven't taken time into consideration at all. Really, the atoms aren't what's conscious. Like the electrons in the neural firing, or the molecules in the chemicals, the neurochemicals. What's conscious is not those substances. What's conscious is the process. What's conscious is the flow of matter through the form of the body. And that probably means absolutely nothing. It means a little bit to me. I think I understand what I just said. But there's no way to be sure. I guess I'll find out based on how angry your response is.